3000.
What he's doing, my name's Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by an MC, an artist, Jimmy Nice. Thanks for coming, man.
How are you, my bro?
You were on a plane at 5:30 this morning texting me, so it's commitment to get down here. I appreciate it.
I was actually surprised that you hit me back at that point. I was expecting like a touchdown response, but I'm actually up usually around, I hate to say, around 4:45 every morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
Part of like a fitness regime?
Part of my daughter just wanted to wake up at that time. I usually wake up early, or I was always that guy early on that I would rock up to their house at like 7 in the morning and people be like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? So I've always been an early riser, but yeah, just of late, that's my daughter's schedule. So that's where I'm waking up.
It definitely helps with stuff like this because I've had a bunch of interstate guests who will remain nameless, but that have been like, yeah, man, we'll touch down. I'll get down to see you. And it doesn't happen because, and like I sort of expressed to you, but if you're that early, it's going to work. But people flying in on a Friday at 4:30 and they think they're going to get down here by 7, nah, man.
And then you hit the morning peak hour traffic. But look, I mean, for me, I've never been a one to go out and spend crazy hours at night. I've always, all my writing's done in the morning.
Yep.
Like pretty much all of this recent work is like 6 a.m. Bang, all the ideas come. So
that's it.
Morning's my time, man.
When you're fresh.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, so we're going to talk a lot about your solo stuff. We're going to go right back into the archives, man. So like, tell us how you got your start in this hip hop thing.
How did I get my start? I mean, I always had a deep interest for hip hop culture. I think initially I grew up in a part of the inner west called Newtown, Erskineville. They're like neighboring suburbs.
Different back then?
Very different back then.
It's kind of cool now.
It was gritty. Yeah. It was gritty compared to now. And when I was born in Erskineville, my house, little 2-bedroom house, backed onto the train lines there. And one of my earliest memories was of the steam trains that used to roll past there. And I remember my grandma kind of lifting me up so I could see over the back corrugated iron fence. And that didn't really play into like the graffiti, but definitely the areas and the streets that were around me. It was like a big BCF kind of stronghold. And so like all
What's BCF stand for people that aren't from Sydney?
Big city freaks.
Okay.
Big city freaks. And so a lot of my early influences were probably taken from these kind of streetscapes. And, you know, I walk down the street and see Demote and Snarl and Days and Fibs. Like that was kind of like all around me. And so I guess that's kind of where some of my interest peaked into the culture. A lot of my early influences also came through like breaking.
Yep.
You know, just community workshops with Mystery running them, and a couple of cats at my school were breaking, like just in the halls, you know. And then
Were you good at it?
I wasn't bad. I wasn't bad. I might take my socks off and river here, but it was all kind of back then. It was all interwoven, as you know, and but for me, I was always a heavy into drawing, and these two things, like the breaking and the writing, that kind of led me down the path to MC. But at the start, it was just shit we did at parties. It was just fun stuff. My man Hilly was the first one to actually say, well, first of all, Hilly was the person who introduced me to rap, you know, but I guess early year 7, we used to catch the bus home and he would just share the headphone cord, you know, like
the Discman?
The Discman, yeah.
What are we listening to, man?
What are we listening to? We're listening to probably Tupac, Eazy-E, a lot of West Coast stuff. But I think West Coast was probably the introduction before moving to the East.
Doggy Style, that sort of thing?
All that stuff, yeah. And that kind of sparked a lot of my curiosity with wanting to do it myself. Someone at our school called Samantha, she was leaving school. Hilly thought it would be a good idea to be like, put something together for her and let's write something down, let's record something. So that was the first time ever that we like crafted what you would call a 16 or an 8 or a 4, whatever the fuck it was. I can't remember.
You didn't know about the structure then, did you?
I mean, I'm pretty like perceptive and I would be able to like know roughly what to do, but in terms of trying it myself, it was all new. It was all new. And then from there, we enjoyed that process and started to record at his house. But like, this is a very elementary setup.
We're talking 90s now.
We're talking like a mic like this.
Yeah.
Out of a TV looking, 90s computer and like 5 of us.
Yeah.
So there wasn't even you didn't even chop it. There was one there, and then like whoever was standing behind, you had to move out of the way, and then they would jump in. So that's kind of where we cut our teeth. And things just progressed. But I didn't. It was always the graffiti that led me, and a little to a lesser extent the breaking that led me down the path of like trying to write my thoughts down and record them.
Had you heard any Australian rap at this point?
So the first time that I came across Australian rap was the Hilltop Hoods, like I'm sure that it is for a lot of people. But the first rhymes that we wrote were not in an Australian accent.
Which is a story for a lot of people.
It was a story for a lot of people. It actually wasn't a huge window. It might have been months. Like, it wasn't years. It might have been like a few months where we were like just mimicking the accents that you heard in the songs that you liked. And then it wasn't until we heard The Calling at was at Solo from Horrorshow's house, and he had an older brother that put him on a lot of this stuff, and he was like, you gotta listen to the Hoods. And after that we switched a lot of things switched after hearing that for us, but that was when that transition was made.
Because, it does happen for a lot of people because you can't really emulate what you haven't heard yet.
Exactly. And, that opened the floodgates for a lot of other music to come. But you just copy back then, When you're a toy, what do? You just emulate whatever you hear. So I fell in love with the writing and the way to kind of craft a verse from the music that was coming out of the States, but in terms of like the tone and just how to sound and finding my own voice, that was probably a lot of it came down to Suffer, to be honest. Like that, he was probably the biggest influence on like my inflections and tones and different ways to kind of paint using my voice. I would say that he's probably the biggest influence there.
And so painting, is that getting left behind a bit and you focus more on the music at that point?
Not really.
No?
I would say that, at this point, we're probably 15, so like, at this point, it's probably 50-50. And, but music was not really at the point where like, let's go do a project. It was just random songs. I mean, we used to record whatever we recorded with that stick mic, the toothbrush looking mic, and then we would be like, all right, cool, we got 6 things, and we'll slang them at lunch, like in the schoolyard. That was about the extent of how like serious we took it.
Were people clowning on you, or people like,
no,
oh, that's cool?
No, not really. Not at school. I mean, I'm sure other people that were like already rhyming and were like familiar with the process, they were probably like, that's whack, but... At that moment, I think people were like what we were doing. But I would say that it was probably 50-50 with that and like, waking up and painting and going straight to school. And like that was still, I was in the mix there.
I've heard from a lot of people from Sydney that like, obviously we've got graph exists there, but apparently it's not as accepted there, or it's not as cool there, that a lot of people just really aren't about it. And then in Melbourne, it's way more of part of the everyday kind of culture.
It's all down to the acceptance, you know. Like, I mean, I was everywhere. There is a crazy amount of advertising, but I was just looking at like the difference between Melbourne and Sydney is like it's incorporated into it. Whereas in Sydney, you walk down King Street right now, and there's like a 50-meter billboard that's just filth, and that's acceptable. Do you know? Like, you don't even question that is some kind of corporate version of graffiti, right? It's just accepted. And I think here, I don't know why, but it has been
embraced
and just tastefully incorporated into the fabric of this city, you know? And it's always been like that.
But even growing up, though, from what I can understand, is your peers were like, man, graffiti, that's not a thing. Don't
Definitely.
do that. Like at school, you weren't going up to chicks going, hey, I'm a writer.
No, I mean, that went for a lot of things. Like, I mean, that went for like drugs. Like, back when we were in school, if you smoke weed or you like, that wasn't what the girls liked, so you didn't do that. Like, or you didn't, you know, do X, Y, and Z. A lot of it was driven by like what the girls liked, to be honest with you, at that point. I mean, graffiti was probably one of those things that was never not frowned upon. But I always feel like the place in which I came in was from a super artistic and tasteful point. Like, it was never just to be red hot and rebellious. It was always it always just had that undertone of like, I want this to be the flyest artistic thing that I can do.
And be proud of.
Yeah, I mean...
So it wasn't about the destruction for you, it was more about the artistic endeavours.
No, but it all gets bundled up, right? But like, I mean, those early days, I'm talking about Erskineville, like, once we started to cut our teeth and try and find our space in this new and like very exciting world,
evolving sort of space, yeah.
There was all these workshops. I mean, I said this before, but there's these workshops that they used to run down at Erskineville PCYC, which was a street away from where I grew up, and that was run by Demote and Fibs, and they would, you know, this is real elementary shit, but it would be like plywood board, show you how to apply paint, how to use different nozzles, and they would sit there and like, you know, my mum would take me from school, year 7, and be like, I'll drive you to this thing. You know, she was always mad supportive. Yeah.
Exactly the same, yeah.
I'm sure it's like all around, but that was super important. So like when I look at, okay, so who are the people that I'm like getting game from? You know, it's like top of the totem pole for me is like Demote. So it's like if he's the one that's like telling me, oh, your letter should swing like this and use this arrow here, and you know, he's giving me alphabets, and it's like that. If there was someone else teaching me, I would have gone that direction. I feel like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
no. Well,
I think it's the because if you look at an artist like Demote, like what does he value? You can kind of tell what he values in his work, right? It's not just. You can see that there's like an authenticity to it and a quality that he has to kind of maintain. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I liked. It matched with my personality, and that's kind of like where I like to take it. I mean, it carried on through music as well, but that were those early teachings like that always kind of stuck with me, and like trying to make a quality product at all times, you know. Mm-hmm.
And so then you take that sort of mentality into your music as well, but it's a bit more primitive.
Yeah.
Have you got a crew that you're rolling with then? You're making music, you solos? What are you doing?
I mean, just cats from that we were in our kind of graffiti crew with, and school crew was kind of who we were making music with then. I think I've always been a bit of a like everything I do, I want to do it well, a bit of that kind of Virgo perfectionist style. Like I'll have to make it all fit perfectly, and when we were starting to dabble a little bit more professionally, I would say, or semi-professionally, in terms of like, all right, let's sit down and start to craft songs, not just like I'm way iller than you. We started to navigate with Nick Lupi, who I was in Spit Syndicate with, and there was a good friend of Solo from Horrorshow crew. They went to school together.
So you linked with Nick early.
Linked with Nick early, but this is all kind of via Solo from Horrorshow. So his brother kind of gave the blueprint of like, this is what you should listen to. Then everyone knew that I was kind of rhyming, and so Nick put us in touch with the other Nick and was like, you guys should link up. And then we started to, I guess, form what became Spit Syndicate. And that was probably over a year. We were all making verses for one another, and then at some point we decided we should just do this us, and the songs kind of formed from there. But for a while it was like, it was still just playful. I don't know when it became, maybe around 2007 it probably became a little bit more like, we should do this for real. Because
you're hearing a lot more of the Australian stuff on the radio, and it's popping by that stage.
For sure. It's everywhere, really. And like, I mean, it's just, once you open those floodgates, like everything comes in. I don't know what we were listening to. A lot of LC, Delta, a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff was like really sticking, and you know, everyone wanted to rhyme like Strut. Everyone wanted to rhyme like Trem, and you know, you could just see the influence and the tone of what we were saying was changing. The delivery was changing, and we were just kind of all in then. Like, that was a new exciting thing. It was like, I mean, a lot of it was actually coming down here. Like, a lot of those early trips coming down in Melbourne was like an eye-opening experience, because we kind of held Melbourne MCs in this super high regard. It was like, this was the mecca, really, at that time. And
even though Adelaide put it on the map a lot, though.
Yeah, no doubt. But like, for us, we weren't looking at Adelaide, no diss, because I got super love for all pockets of Australia. But for us, like, at that time, those early 2000s, like, this was really where like all of our favorites were kind of tussling it out. And so to come down here, we were coming down here more frequent than we would Adelaide. So just what you were saying before we started recording, like, just the graffiti, just to see the graffiti and the damage that was done around those early 2000s. It was a super eye-opening experience, and, you know, got us to the point where we could get in front of people and potentially have this like opportunity to put our music out.
So when you sorry, finish.
That's all right. That's it. That's it.
When you when you first come here with music in mind, and obviously like looking at all the graph, who are you coming down to connect with? Where are you going as a fan? Are you going to Obese to say, hey, we got a demo? What are you doing when you first come here with music in mind?
I think at this point, when we were trying to shop around our debut album, Towards the Light, we had spoken to a few different people. It's hard for me to like chronologically place it all. But I think at that time we just wanted to be in the mix, and like, this was kind of where things were happening. This is definitely where, I mean, Obese was always this like flagship label, and held at that point a long list of like prominent acts, right? And so for us to kind of be on the radar, we had to go down there. This is obviously pre-Gram. This is pre-iPhones. So you had to be down here, like, and you had to be at the shows. You had to be doing X, Y, and Z.
Because a lot of demos were getting handed to them.
Yeah.
And from people I know that work there, went straight in the bin.
Exactly. But you had to have them on you at a show or something. You know, you had to be like, you had to have a physical on you. Otherwise, like, it's not moving.
I ended up with some of those demos with our friend who's gifted me a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Because they were just in the demo section, which it became just...
I remember you going to Obese and I would see the pile. I'll be like, is that a fucking coaster or like there was just a pile of them? And, you know, at this point, Pegs is also like one of these artists that we're listening to a lot. And like, just there's a long list of acts, Muff and Platonic, and like all these people that are around and just going to the old store. So like, it was just about being amongst it and being in the mix and soaking it up. But, you know, through that comes like, we have an album that we're toying with, you know. I think we're making a little bit of noise, but like, I think once it got into like Pegs' hands and once it got into a few other people's hands, and I think we were talking to some other people up in Sydney, maybe Elephant Tracks, and trying to find a home, you know. But around that time, the early trips here is really just to like see what was going on down here, you know. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Because I guess I'm trying to think of the timeline as well. Like mid 2000s, you couldn't even send someone a link to listen to a song, could you? You could email them.
What I think was there is like there was like MySpace. There was like,
so you could put a few tracks on MySpace, and they might click on that. But I think you could only have 2 or 3 tracks. Yeah,
it was a weird time.
Yeah,
it was just physicals. Physicals were like going down there and like slanging them. That was the climate, you know. So,
and in Sydney, was there places that would give Oz rappers a chance around then?
Definitely. I mean, there was like, you know, you had your equivalent of Obese, which was Next Level Records, you know, and that was not a record label, but like in terms of a hub for us, that's where it was, and that was run by like Sarek at the time, Dr. Fibes, and you know, all around this time, like that would be kind of the spot where everyone would go.
Yeah,
you know, they had a legendary staircase that went up, and you know, around this time you would go up and ask them like, what's the illest shit in this week, you know? They'd be like, here's this Gangstar record, here's this Wordsworth thing, here's this blah blah blah, and that's where a lot of like those early influences came, just from like the OGs slanging you what they thought was dope that week, you know?
Would they stock independent artists if they went?
100%, yeah, all of that. Like, I mean, that was when that went. There was a lot of the soul went, you know.
What year was that? Was when roughly?
Good question. Good question. I mean, Ology, DJ Ology was someone who kind of took that and kind of made another home for Next Level, which was called Soul Clap, which is like kind of around the corner in Chinatown, and that was a hub too. And I'm not taking anything away from that, but there was something about that original spot. I guess it depends on what time you grew up and when it hit you, but like there was something magical about going up those staircases and it was like a Hall of Fame there, you know, like.
Yeah. It's amazing how you can take the same product, move it around the corner, because the same thing happened with Obese. It went maybe 300 meters away. But the building and the history sort of stays within that one premise.
Exactly.
Premises, I should say.
Yeah. So there was, I mean, there's been many iterations, I guess, but like, I don't even know what's around now, really. But
well, physical brick and mortar stores are
few and
far between.
I know. But yeah, that was a magic place, and I guess that was the closest equivalent to having like, you know, that Obese or the what's that other spot in Richmond?
Oh, this is it.
This is it. Yeah.
So you guys had your MySpace was going all right. You're making a little bit of traction, so you know that people are listening to your demos. So you come down here and you're like, hey, you know, we're here, we're doing our thing. What's the next step from there?
I think the next step is like, really, we wanted to put this album out. We had been on this kind of mixtape run, and
the beats are coming from where?
At this point, the beats are coming from a few different people. Up until this point, we were working with someone called Fame from Sydney, who was like probably the first person to be like, I like those guys. I'm going to give them original beats. Before then, it was just over whoever else's beat. So the first mixtape that we did in 2006 was some Jack beats, and then the other ones was produced by him. Mm-hmm. And he really brought us in and taught us like how to deliver and how, you know, different things about the cadence and how we should be projecting our voice. He really kind of schooled us to doing it professionally.
He was more of a veteran in the game.
Yeah, and he also was just like, there's just beats galore. Like when we moved to the debut record that we were working on, there were beats from M Phases, beats from Jace, beats from Adit from Horrorshow.
Yep.
Who else?
And they're all at the top of their game there.
They are. Sorry?
Khaled.
Yeah, Khaled. And yeah, we just, again, like finding our feet. Like when are you not finding your feet? Like I still feel like I'm finding my feet and trying to figure out how to better it. But back then, like, we wanted to be a little bit different. We wanted to make songs for girls, which was kind of something that was a bit unheard of then.
It was kind of changing though.
It was kind of changing.
Kind of creeping in.
But I feel like we were a big part of why it crept in.
Yep.
And that's not a horn toot, but like I feel like at that point, it was a focus for us. Yep. And I mean, but it wasn't just about girls. It was like just an honest depiction of like, we wanted to make honest music that was like a clear reflection of our lives at that time, and
more palatable, I guess, to a wider audience.
Well, you would see, right? Like in the early days, like you would go to a show and it would just be all guys. And most of them would be staunch and they have their back against the wall and be like, all right, well, I'm not impressed. You know, like even if you were nice, like they would still look at you like, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, they didn't want proper hooks. They didn't want female vocals. They just wanted the bars.
You do not want a hook. Like if there's not a DJ up there with you who's cutting through that 8-bar hook, like we're not even looking up from our beer. That was the climate. So
and you wanted to change that.
Well, we didn't listen to music that was like just that. Like we listened to songs like, we listened to people talk about like the whole gamut, you know, like, and that was, you know, songs about, you know, on my first album, it's like songs about my dad leaving and songs about some heartbreak, and like, so it wasn't just battle raps, you know. We tried to make something that was like touching on all sorts of emotional realities for us at this point. But we're teenagers, so like, you know, chasing girls and getting our hearts broken, that was where we were at. So, but it did change around this time. You're right. And you know, a lot was changing. And I think that we were having these talks with Pegs, and I remember being at Lupi's house and him being like, one thing I do remember is he was kind of back and forthing with us a bit on like getting us signed. And I remember one of the sticking points was we've got this tour coming up with the Hoods, and it's not verbatim, but like essentially if you sign, you will be their support for their tour.
Nationally, not just in Sydney.
No, like the run.
Right.
So this was I mean, at this point,
What
year
is this?
This would have been Hard Road, I think.
Okay.
This would have been Hard Road times. So this would have been 2008-ish, something like that.
So they're at the peak of their game, and
and this was a big deal for us.
For sure,
it was a big deal.
But they were still on obese, I'm guessing. Then
yeah, this was the last one.
Well, last one, right?
Or the Restrung was the last, right?
Well, yeah. So
contractually,
Pegs is playing his trump card there.
Well, I don't think he necessarily needed to, because it wasn't like we had a bundle of offers over here. We might have had one thing that was like, all right, if we don't go with obese, we might go here. But it wasn't like 7 labels knocking down our door. It wasn't like that.
Right.
And we wanted to sign with Obese because
But
it
you're
was
playing it
just.
cool.
Well, we're playing it like teenagers would play it, right? we're playing it cool or didn't know what the fuck we were doing, like whichever. So when that came through, though, we were like, all right, well, that would be amazing jump off point. Like that's a great springboard for a new artist is like getting to go on a run with the Hoods. That never happened. And
who got the support?
I don't know, but it wasn't us.
Anyway,
and then, I'm not saying that as like I'm a bitter thing. Like these are just working out. Like this is kind of the ins and outs of the game. And people might say and promise X, Y, and Z, but you got to have a backup and you got to have your wits about you when you're navigating these things. We never signed a contract, we never signed a contract. Contract was just handshake, that was it. So like,
as much as there was no contract, I guess you got to say you were a little.
No, we did sign a contract with Obese, but like up until that point, sorry, we had not we had not dealt with that.
But there's a lot of moving parts. Like at that stage, Obese was a machine, so he might have been like, "Well, look, it's not actually right for you guys to go on tour because your album's not ready, and we've already got these ones in the cycle, and it's gonna, you know what I mean?"
You know what? I actually don't think that it was him saying, "Let me just dangle this carrot in front of you, and then I'm gonna." Once you sign, like that's not gonna. I actually don't think that was. It just didn't work out. Yeah. But like, you've got to move without all these kind of things. Like you got to move on your own.
So what did the deal that you signed was for how many records?
3 albums, 5 years, I think. And so the albums that came out were Towards the Light, Exile, and Sunday Gentleman. That was like our.
But you only had the one record ready to go-ish.
Yes.
And so let's talk about that one.
Yeah.
So you dropped the first one. At this point in time, anything basically connected to Obese is getting album of the week almost. So does that happen?
I can't recall, but I mean, we got crazy praise for it. We got nominated for ARIA for it.
Off your debut, which is, you can't ask for any more than that,
I know, but
except to win it, maybe.
It was a weird, right. It was a weird space though, like something that was like, we weren't even thinking about that and that kind of came about. But, for this, like we kind of pushed the boat out a little bit sonically as well, like from what I think was heard at that time. And obviously like these more... emotionally available content on the album, I think was a bit jarring for people, especially when they're looking at like who else is on this roster, who else has like what have people done so far. Like I feel like it was just a jarring listen for a lot of people. And then match that with the album comes out, the next Hilltop Hoods is what Acclaim, I think, wrote, or some other people wrote. There's a label. No one spoke to us about this, but on all the physicals that went into JB, Fish Records, whatever it was, the future of Australian hip hop. And like, I appreciate it, but at this point, we don't want that. Like, this is our first album, right? So like, we already know that there's all this. At this point, like, people are starting to kind of leave Obese. There's this like kind of mass exodus, and then like we're supposed to be the replacement, or at least we're obviously never going to replace
carry the torch.
Yeah, that was more the sentiment, but like I think that they thought that they were doing the right thing by that, but I actually think that hurt us, and we had to kind of.
It set the bar pretty high. It sort of
as high as it could go, and at that point you're like. We don't want the comparison. We just want to build. Like, we were pretty aware of like how elementary it was compared to, what people that have been doing it for 20 years. Like, so that was a difficult comparison. And I think that as soon as people saw that, they'd be like, you're already wired to listen to it in a way where you're like, this isn't the future. Like, you know what I'm saying?
It's like when someone says,
this is the new hot shit. We're like, that's mid.
Yeah.
So
it's when someone tells you to go see a movie, it's the best movie, and you've got high expectations.
Right.
When they tell you that, you're going in with a different mindset.
Yeah. So that was a battle, not a huge one, but like I think the main battle was like for ourselves, like realizing, oh, we got a lot to learn. Like we've got a lot to work on, you know, and like other people around us are starting to make music and at a high quality. Like the first Horrorshow record was about this time, just a bit after us. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're hearing this production. It's all from one producer. It's super cohesive. There's like, thematically, it's all tied in. And we're like, all right, well, that's fire too. So, and it all just kind of pushing everything along and like helping us figure out who do we want to be? What kind of act do we want to be, you know? And it's all beautiful. Like we're trying to figure it out, and like we're figuring it out not by talking, by action.
Yep.
You know, like we're putting it out. We're having people say, "This was dope. This was whack. This is X, Y, and Z." And you know, you take on things and you grow, and that's the game.
The live shows change, I'm guessing, as well.
Yeah. So one thing that happened for us that was super cool around this time was the Obese Block Party, and that was where we started to look at other people playing. I think who was on that show? I think Muff and Platonic were playing.
Is that the Metro one?
Yeah.
Yep, I was there.
And it was a good run. Like there was a lot of acts, and just watching how other people interact with the crowd, learning how to banter in between songs, how to set them up, how to, you know, crowd control. Like these are all things that were pretty rough around the edges before that setup.
So learning how to level up and polish the live show more.
Yeah. And like, I think after that little run, it was like, all right, live has to be a big focus for us, because it almost moved into like, when we're in the studio, we need to have live in mind. And I mean, following that, like we became an act that like toured a lot, like, you know, a few a year, and we hadn't really considered it until we went on that Obese Block Party run. Plus, it was just so fun. Like, it was just silly, like a super silly time.
It's really interesting that you sort of make the early record thinking we just want it to sound good, but then the second record you're like, hang on, we've got to actually do this and perform it.
And that's, you can hear that jump. Yep. Like you can hear that jump in the quality, and like I think you can hear the jump in like, all right, we're doing this. This is a serious thing now. Like it just felt like there was a new level to be unlocked, and it was a competitive time as well. Like there was a lot of people competing for this space around 2010. Like there was a lot happening, and there's a lot of radio play. Like Triple J had just got it in a rizzy. Like
I reckon it's probably around that time is probably the peak of Aussie rap that you're ever going to hear on the radio from not like maybe not in the future, but around about then. Mm-hmm. It was a lot.
Yep. So that's playing a part now as well, and I know that for a lot of acts, like, oh, fuck the radio, and I'm never catering anything, but like, if you want to progress, it is in the back of your mind if it's not in the forefront. Like, so we're thinking of just all these little things, all these little components that you try and like add to your bag of tricks. But we had some good success at radio for the first album and also the second album, but like it was never a space where we like excelled. Like we never got commercial love to the point, and to be honest, we never really wanted it. All we ever really wanted to be recognized for was like our ability and the potential to have like these albums. One thing we always did when we made these albums is like, is this going to be good in 10 years? Is this like, it was never based off like,
is it going to stand the test of time?
Is it going to stand the test of time? Because like, what is disposable and what is something that is forever? It's like honesty and like conviction is always going to be always going to transcend eras. Like you listen to songs from the 60s, like if the emotion is in there and the conviction is in there and people that are playing are connecting, you play it now and you can hear that, you can feel exactly that connection. Mm-hmm. So time is kind of irrelevant. So we always wanted to make music that stands. And I think around this point we're like finding our feet and focusing a lot on like less on singles, even though that's in the back of our mind, but more on like bodies of work that are cohesive and really will last.
There's like an ongoing narrative almost, like that you can listen to them start to finish.
That's always because they're the albums that we like. Like that's just what we like to listen to is albums that are like considered.
Yeah.
And you got to think about like, yes, there are singles off the record, right? Like there's people like Pegs is like, you should make it like this. Like,
how much input does he have?
Not heaps. Not heaps. He's just at this point. I think they're just pointers, right?
Because they've got to be happy with how the first record went, right?
They are, yeah.
So they're like, okay, well, if as long as you do that again, then we're happy.
I do remember being in his car and he's picked us up from the station. At this point, we were like staying at his house a lot, and he would be like, "Let me play this," and he played us Jimmy Ricard, and it's kind of like you should maybe think about this. And we're like, well,
is this Jimmy Ricard yet, or is this a demo?
It's a demo of Jimmy Ricard,
right? So you hadn't heard anything like this, really?
No, but like we thought, this is going to be a big song. I didn't know it was going to be that big, but like there was an element of like, yeah, but that's not us. Like we don't. And I love Draft and I love that song, but like there would be other moments like, what about this hook from X, Y, and Z? Like you should make one that's kind of like that. And I actually understand now, because if I look back at early albums, it was kind of a lot of, there was no space. There was no tension and release in the hooks. It was like crushed in together. And so I think at that point it was a little bit of like, you need to open it up and simplify it. We were always trying to be tech and always trying to like squash a lot in.
So less is more, you're sort of saying.
A little bit. But I also think that he's a bit like, give me one of these.
Well,
right?
And he knew that was going to be big.
Yeah, but at that point we were also like, we do our own thing. Like we always wanted to push something that was authentically us.
For sure.
But it's always that battle of like, am I putting you on game here, or am I trying to like course correct and steer you down this other path?
Yeah. In his defense, though, he heard that Jimmy Ricard record,
Yeah.
knew that was going to be
Knew it
an
was
absolute
gonna go.
belter.
Yeah, for
And he
sure.
probably thought, who on my roster
For sure.
is the most similar to Draft? And he pointed towards you guys.
For sure. And if you put yourself into his, like, what are you going to do? You're going to go look at what's connecting at radio or what's connecting on the live circuit and be like, how do you take some of this? And, but it was always it was a funny time, to be honest. Like, we learnt a lot, and I think we were a bit starry-eyed for a lot of it. And I also think the label at that point were like just doing the bare minimum. So like Nick especially was doing a lot of the like, he was essentially the manager, right? And essentially acting also as like part of the label. He'd be on them. Like, what's happening with this? What's happening with that? And so like, I got love for everyone that was a part of these records, but I also think that like, there was a point where it was like, we're just going to do, there's like a template, right? There's like, we're going to, whatever's allocated on this template, we're not going beyond that. And, I understand that too, but like at some point we were like, we got to do more. We got to like, we've got to, if we wanted to go, like we got to do it we've got to do it. Mm-hmm. Like no one's gonna care about it more than us.
And that means like pushing it yourself.
That means doing a lot of extra work.
Right? More touring.
Yeah, and like just putting our music in front of the right people. Like, this is the time of like street press is like king, and
you still got Channel V and stuff as well.
Yeah, all of that, but like, we just needed. I think we just needed more. Maybe we expected too much. Maybe we expected too much from the label, and maybe we compared it to like, these kind of golden years of the pocket of time just before us, but we didn't have those records. We didn't have that, like, we weren't that act. We didn't have the eyes on us. We didn't have the ears on us. So like, it's a bit of both.
Yeah, and the label had grown, and they're also like, well, Spit Syndicate are doing stuff. Let's think about who else is coming up. We've got this draft dude. Like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of moving parts, and there was also a lot of acts. So like, the Oars leave, the Hoods leave, and then it's like the roster fills up. There's like Fundamentals, there's us, there's like a bunch of other people, and all great acts in their own right. But like, I think there was no like Hoods type powerhouse there. So like everyone was kind of vying for that spot, and there's a lot of different groups and a lot of different like signings to focus on, where it's like that your capabilities get diluted, right? If you're like,
you can't incubate as much as with it. Yeah.
No, and it's all at the same time. So it's like everyone's coming at the same time. It's not like 1 year we get this act and 1 year we get this act, and so we can really put it all in. But they're figuring it out too. Like everyone's trying to figure it out.
Well, that's it. It's like there's no template really before the Hoods blow up to how to do it.
Yeah.
There's no template to run a independent hip hop label in Australia until they've sort of broken the. So that no one really knows. It's like everyone's learning. Everyone's breaking new ground.
Exactly, and the game doesn't stop. Like we still had to fulfill this 3-album contract.
But in hindsight, well, at that time, you probably would have been happy with 2 and then gone elsewhere. But you had to fulfill it, right? Just because you don't think they were giving you enough.
I think it was a bit of that. It was a bit of both. I think it was. I actually think that the 3rd album on that, that we contractually delivered, was the best, and we had good success at radio. Then again, we had a song called "Beauty in the Bricks" that went like really well for us and kind of led the album. And so from there, it was like, all right, where to next? Like we were really finding our feet with like the Sonics. Like we really carved out our sound, I think. And like, we had a studio at this point, which was like, we never really had a studio. And so when we're making songs for Sunday Gentlemen, I might be skipping forward and back a little bit, but around this time, which I think was 2011, 2012, we had a studio space that we shared with Horrorshow, and we were all, at this point, the production of Horrorshow and the Spit Syndicate albums are like, ARIA is making all the beats, and it's just whoever's in the studio that night, like, I've got this, like, this is going to be RB. Or like, Nick from Horrorshow would be like, what are you doing with that blah, blah, blah beat? And we're like, oh, we didn't write anything to that. And he's like, this would be the intro to his album. So it was awesome, though, because it was like everyone is working on each other's projects. ARIA is really at the helm, and there's starting to become like an ARIA-driven one-day sound. And it's also a point where like we're spending more time in there. We're just getting better. Like when we're around it. Before, we wouldn't really like spend night after night in the studio. Like we're kind of preoccupied with doing other shit that like 21-year-olds do, So as we progressed and made this last album with Obese, like we were really having fun and enjoying it, and like having fun doing something that we felt like was really relevant, you know.
And you'd really found your sound by that stage, where the first record you hadn't quite, the second record you're thinking more about live stuff, and you're thinking more about different ways to perform it. But the third one, you're like, nah, we've found our vibe.
Yep.
We know our pocket.
Yeah, and I think that we definitely felt like we're connecting with our people. You know, like there's people that want this kind of music from us, and it's the music that we want to make. I think that's always important. It's like we were never making music that we didn't want to listen to. Like, I don't know if that's always the case. Like, even now, like, I don't think I've ever made an album that, like, I've never really gravitated towards anything that I haven't felt comfortable doing. Yeah. I know that in the early days, like, you're just figuring it out, but at this point, we're really like, yeah, we're really hitting our stride. But, you know, the end of this contract is up. We had good success with that. We did a few tour runs that were really dope. And this was a kind of a peak for us at that point. And, you know, we had a bit of breathing space to be like, well, what do we do next, you know? And that was, what year does that bring us up to? I think after that, we started to work on this kind of collaborative project. And this kind of coincides with us really trying to steer this one day collective, this one day brand, I guess, because at this time we're throwing these parties in our neighborhood called One Day Sundays. Yep. That grew to be this, you know, big beast. But it just started as like Sunday, put some food on, put an act on, put a DJ on, someone paint the wall, and it's chill. It quickly erupted into this like, there's 50 police, there's 2,000 people outside, there's like...
What venue is it at?
So it's at the Vic in Sydney, right? Which has a huge beer garden, and I think we did about 2 or 3 there, and then it was like out the door. And then that moved to the Factory Theatre, which is around the corner. Yep. And that's also a huge space. That was like, 1,300 people, I think. And then it went around. Like we came down here to Melbourne. We were at the Penny Black. We were at Howler. We were at a few different spots, and we started to do them in Brizzy and Perth, and like this was a lit time too. Like we were out a lot, and this was all coinciding with making music together. We started to like form this crew. Jackie Onassis came in, Joyride, and it was like we got a little crew now, and we were working so deeply in each other's projects. Like, oh, I didn't put a hook on this, so you have this, and it was like
collaborative.
Yeah, and like everyone was on each other's stuff. It was like, let's just make a project, and it made a lot of sense. Initially, it was just like 5, 6 songs, and then it came to this larger album that ended up coming out through Sony and Elephant Tracks, and it became this big beast for us. So that was like a new chapter. And
who did the deal with Sony? Because that's a big jump.
It is. It is. As in, like, who?
Well, yeah. So obviously you're on the radar with some majors, but like, how does it go from some dudes putting on parties on a Sunday afternoon to, hey, this might be a collective we can push and take to a major like Sony?
Well, I think that a couple things. A few of the other acts in their own solo respects. So like Horrorshow were having good success with a few of their singles. We had a bit of success at radio with songs off Sunday Gentlemen. I think Jackie Onassis had a song called Crystal Ballin' that was like...
That was a big Triple J one, yeah.
Pumping at the time. So like, I think people kind of saw that like maybe if we Megatron this shit, it will work. But I think at the Paul Harris was someone who was working at Sony at the time, and he was always like, I love what you guys do. And he was kind of the one that really steered that deal. And with Horrorshow being on Elephant Tracks, there was a JV there, which was a bit of a funny thing, like a super duper indie and a super duper major kind of sharing the workload. It worked for us. It was only a one album deal, and we never made another album off that. But like, this was really, again, it's just so super fun. Like we were making, after that 3 back-to-back 3 records with Obese, it took a heaps of the weight off. First of all, you got 7 cats in the crew. 3 are producers / vocalists, and then the rest are just MCs. So it's like you might just get 8 bars off on one song. It's light, it's not. Oh, what's the
many hands make light work?
Exactly. That was this. The intro is called Many Hands. So it took a lot of the pressure off, and just making the music that we wanted to make. We rented a house in Byron, and we went up there, and we rented a house in Little Bay in Sydney, and so it was like really felt like a family thing, like bringing the engineer to the lounge room. This one studio in this room, one studio in this room. It was like pretty luxe compared to like a little dungeon in 5 Dock, which was how we were moving before. And I think the music really kind of reflected that. Plus, just having like
other creatives to bounce off. It was like it was amazing. I mean, and like there's a lot of other stuff going on like in our lives around this time, but like this was a good time. It was coinciding heaps heavily with the One Day Sundays parties. Like they were really hitting their stride at this point, so it all made sense. It was like everyone takes a break from their solo projects and like comes in and does this one day mainline project, and the parties are kind of running off the back of that. We used to do, when we did a couple of tours for it, but like we would do the show on the Friday or the Saturday, and then we would have like this kind of hangover day party. Recovery on the Sunday. So it was like tick, tick, tick for like bundling all of this up. And we had some decent success, and like people love that album. I love that album, and it was a good time. We actually tried to like not replicate it, but like all get in the studio 10 years later. So like maybe not 10 years later, maybe like 2022. Yeah, so a few years ago now, but like I guess in anticipation for there being like, it's been 10 years. Crazy how quick shit moves, but like there's 10 years. Maybe we can work on another thing. So I think we had like 3 days in the studio, but it wasn't the same. It was still, we still had songs, but like people got kids now, can't have those late nights. The hunger's not there.
Can't take it 3 tabs at 4 a.m. and then kick on till 3 days later and still be making music in your undies and a thing. Like, it's just mental times. Like, can't do that now. Like, people got jobs, people got X, Y, and Z, people got stuff to do. And I think that a lot of that boldness that you hear on that album came from just that freedom of like, we're living off music. Like, we're doing parties and touring. That was it. Like, we didn't have a job for so long. So like, that was the job. So you didn't have anyone call in back in 2014 at work. Like, you didn't get up the next day that you didn't get up. So that helped the feeling of the album.
Yeah.
And then when,
you try and
8 years later, there's still a great synergy, and like people still are making dope shit, but there wasn't that glue.
So where does Spit Syndicate go from there, though?
So Spit Syndicate from there, we put out in that time. I think when we were making the One Day album, we put out a little mixtape just as like a we're still doing something. And then after that, what did we do after that? We did an album called One Good Shirt Had Us All Fly, and that was when we were trying to work a bit more with some different producers. We worked with Styles, Fuego, a bunch coming down here, and we'd known Styles since early days, and we love working with him because he's just showed us a whole new like way to approach making these songs. Like,
if you had stayed with that collective, it would have you wouldn't have sort of grown, would you?
Nah,
yeah.
I think that there's always still going to be that skeletal kind of core and sound to the albums, but like, we would just sit there and Styles would have a cigarette break or whatever. This is when he did smoke and wasn't like a marathon runner. He would go out there and we'd be like, oh, what's going on? And he would just look through his shit and he'd just be like, yeah, just you find something, whatever. Like it was like just have a dig. Mm-hmm. And there'd be just shit Lucy's on there where he'd just be like, you like that? I'm like, yeah, we were like this. And this was like a song called No Better, which was one of our biggest joints, and another song called Inhibitions we did in like this 2-day period down here in Melbourne.
So he had the beats there, but just no
nothing.
Structure.
Yeah. And it's almost like garagey kind of tempos, which was different for us. But that's why I liked that it was different. I liked that I didn't quite know where I was going to go on it. Like it was unexpected for us.
As a duo, this is interesting because as a duo, did you always see eye to eye with the direction?
For the most part, yeah. I think that Styles had all this kind of incredible pop success. Obviously, a lot more in the recent years. He's just gone to a different stratosphere, but around this time, he's had a lot of commercial success, and his ability to... He's got incredible talent, and his ability to just hear something and whatever, his first instinct is always the one. So he doesn't have to spend... a lot of artists have a lot of time where they're like, oh, I'm going to rub that out, I'm going to rehash that, I'm going to pull something from here. Nah, he's he might wait 20 minutes and not say anything, but the first idea is that's the idea. Right. So he's just got a great instinct.
It must be amazing as an artist to work with someone like that.
It is. It's to the point where I'm sure any idea that he lays down, because he has the ability to produce a song, and then he'll also potentially put it a top line or some kind of guide. Anyone else that we got to potentially be the singer for that guide or the vocalist for that guide didn't sound as good as the guide. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
And then I think he'd be like, yeah, but I didn't record that on there to be the hook. But it was that good that you'd be like, none of this kind of sounds as good as what you laid. And I'm sure he'd get that all the time. So he's trying to not oversaturate. He had made a conscious effort to be like, I'm on this 3 albums for 360 and I'm all over it and it's having great success. But I think he was aware of I don't want to speak for him, but I know that he was probably aware of not being everywhere. And also it's I'm giving you this incredible piece of music and I'm giving you the idea. Mm-hmm. You guys figure it out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to give you everything. It's like that Drake line. I'll do the hook and the verse. And I'm he was really giving us gifts then. And
to the point that he's humming hooks, or he's giving you lyrics.
Not lyrics. Just a top line. Uh-huh. But for us, the top line's the hardest bit.
Okay.
At this point in time, it's like, because you got to understand, these aren't like your regular boom bap tempos or grooves. These are interesting things where you like have to have a different kind of approach in terms of what you're doing over them, and they have a different kind of sensibility. So he understood them. They were his things, you know. He's just different to most producers. Most producers don't have the vocal range and melodic capabilities that they can just pull shit out of a bag and be like, here you go. So it was a bit of like, I'll lead you in this direction. And I think he did like 4 songs. He did a song with Remy. He did Last Laugh. He did Inhibitions and No Better. So there was like 4 or 5 on there that were on the album. So and for that reason, it sounded different. It sounded large. I did more actually. He did Late Nights as well. So half the album was Styles. And
No Better got a lot of spins on the radio.
No Better got a lot of spins, and that was like, we didn't have anything to follow it up. So it was like, at this point, we had changed. We had a different deal now. We had a 50-50 deal with Inertia. And this is just a distro deal. And I don't want to get too into the background, but, you know, we're talking about the business. So this is also a new kind of setup where it's like, well, Nicky's doing a lot of the legwork. I think with Nick Lupi and I, we're really good because, like, his skill set kind of and my skill set kind of canceled each other out. He was fantastic at, like, what do we need to do this week? Like, what is the admin? What is, like... Yeah. He's being the manager for us. Who do we need to get in front of? I'm more like, well, we have 8 bars left to do here. We don't have a theme for here. What is it going to look like? What's the creative direction around it?
That's partnership, though, man.
Exactly.
You fill each other's weaknesses and
yeah. But so that gave us a little bit of confidence with, like, well, maybe we just need someone to distribute it and give us some paper to finish it. It doesn't have to be this, like, 2 albums and an option. We kind of bit like, we don't want, if it says any more than 1 record in the contract, we don't want it.
Yeah. And you don't know where you're going to be at after that. No. You don't know what's happening. No. So yeah.
And so that was like, after the Mainline thing and the One Day record through Sony, it was like, that was great. Like, we had a great relationship there and a great experience, which isn't always the case. But it was 1 album and we're out. Like, what do we do next? So we kind of tried our hand at this kind of setup. No Better comes out, went amazingly at radio. And then there was a big gap. So that was a huge lesson for us. It was like, we didn't know it was going to go, though. Like, I guess at that point...
Who's servicing it to Triple J at that stage? Because
I think the label is doing that.
Right.
But I think it was one of those cases where you feel like it's been a while since you put out a Double S song. Because remember, it was Sunday Gentleman, then there was like a mixtape, then there was this big kind of run with One Day. So it's been years. Like, and that's playing in your mind. So it was like, I just want to, you know, this is this like sense of urgency of like, we just want to put something out, as if people will have like, I mean, if you're a core fan, right? Like, you can wait on it a little bit longer if you know something good is going to come. But as an artist, sometimes there's a bit of fear there of like, we've got to service them quickly.
Yeah.
So we're like, we'll just drop No Better. Obviously that went better than we kind of thought, but we didn't have anything in the can. So we were still finishing the album. Like, that was just a song that was like...
Oh, so you dropped it, but without the album.
We're still fine-tuning the album. It wasn't like we had to spend another year making it.
Yeah, okay.
But we hadn't handed it in. So that was a lesson. And, you know, whatever we dropped after that didn't go bigger than that.
You did have the back catalogue that the people that made that, because it's a whole new generation of kids that are listening to the radio then that might see that didn't know the early stuff. So they've got a back catalogue that they can jump on.
For sure.
But I guess to have the record ready would have been, that's a lesson.
I just think it would have been like, yeah. And then it's also like, No Better maybe what shouldn't have been the first thing. But there's always that like, do you drop No Better when the album's coming out, or you know, you go through all these different things. But I still love that album as well. But like, again, we are kind of making these decisions with the label, but it's not like no one's telling us you got to do X, Y, and Z. We never reacted very well to like that kind of creative input from a label, but these are all just lessons that you're learning along the way. Well, honestly, we're just happy that is a song that connected, and you know, could have put out the album and nothing went at radio or nothing connected with the people, and that happens too.
Yeah. So in hindsight, looking back now, how would you have done it differently? Just had the album ready to drop?
I would have just had something to, I mean, now, like I would have had something to go in 4 weeks, 5 weeks after, and just kept the momentum. And we didn't do that. And I think whatever we ended up putting out next, which I think was another style song, was Inhibitions, and it just didn't go the same. Would that have changed? I don't think we necessarily changed like the songs that we were going to pick, but I think the gap between the releases, it does help. Like just from an optics point of view, and people thinking, oh, this is part of a project, not just like this standalone thing. That counts for something.
But at this point in time, though, music has changed to the way that people do just put out single songs.
Yeah. True.
You know, so and the people that are consuming music are getting kind of accustomed to that.
True. It just, I think for us, we thought that we had like high hopes for that album, and there was something, it never quite, if I'm speaking honestly, it never quite met, I think, our grand expectations in our heads. I think the music that we did, and I listened back to that album, I love that album. I'm so proud of that album. But in terms of like, did it get this like critical acclaim? I don't know, but I don't think that really was like widely regarded as what we thought it might have been. Like, I actually think that maybe Mainline was maybe heralded it a little bit more, but I've lost my train of thought here.
So, all right, well, so let's just get back on the journey. So what year are we talking here now? So that's got to be...
Yeah, the year we're talking about now is 2016.
Right.
2016. So Mainline comes out in 2014. Spend the next year and a half putting out one good shirt, and it just never really... I think at this point we kind of had high expectations coming off that One Day album, and it never quite reached our internal expectations. And after that period ends, we do a great run of shows, but like we felt like, this is getting into like 2017 areas, we felt like we just need to go again. And I think it's the wrong thing to do. So we just felt like we needed to drop again quickly.
Because you weren't happy with the result. So let's just put this next one out and we'll have another crack at it.
I think that's what it was. It was like, it came out of that like a knee-jerk sense of urgency again of like, we need to just keep at it. Like just keep hitting them with songs. And we had all these kind of like, at this point I'm living in Newtown, and my Jono, who's like a super long time collaborator with us since the first album, he's been, you know, a close friend of mine, and we're working just at our crib. You know, he's got a studio downstairs, and we're just working in there. So I'm like, I've got all these things in the tuck, 8 songs here or whatever. Let's just put them out. So that became the next album, which is called Orbit. And again, like that didn't reach where, I'm fast tracking a bit, but like it didn't fill the void. Right. And then...
But in hindsight, you said that it was too reactionary.
Yes, and I also think that like we were too caught up in this cyclical thing of like drop an album, tour, do another tour, make another album, and just keep it running and running and running, where it's like we never took a, I mean, we did take a break, but like there was never a moment where it was like, I think in the back of our minds we're like, is this going to hit for us? Like, is this going to be something that we do? Or is this just like a hobby that comes in conjunction with these parties, but like next year we're going to have to like get a real job kind of thing.
Is summer holiday over?
Yeah. Kind of like you start to feel that a bit, like you felt like this kind of incremental climb. And then I think at some point it kind of plateaus out. And then you think, oh, is it going to go down further? Are we like not connecting with us as good? And around this time is about 2017. We're I think both internally kind of tussling with these doubts. And then my mum gets really sick. And I mean, she wasn't really sick at the start, but she got this cancer diagnosis, and it starts to play into like, do I want to just back it up and back it up and back it up and back it up and go again? When we can see like the writing's on the wall a little bit here in terms of like the quality of the work and the response isn't quite meeting our expectations. So maybe we need to have a break. And it wasn't I need to have a break from you, like with Nick, or I need to have a break from this. Like, we need to do a little bit of life in this gap.
There's bigger priorities than music.
Definitely. And I needed to do some life too. Like, I needed to spend time with my mum. And, that took precedent over anything else creatively. Like, and it was just a point where, like, we just need to have a little breather here. And maybe in a year's time, we reconnect and make some amazing work, or maybe we go on to do different things. But I think we were both okay with that, because we really hadn't had a break since school in terms of like an extended intentional step away.
It's been a real like work marriage though, just with the two people. Not like with a band where there might be six of you or something. It's just you two.
Yeah. And like we're both strong personalities and stubborn, super stubborn in our own right. And like for us it's a real win for me to like arrive at that point, even to get to that point, but like even arrive at this point, like, and be so tight and have so much respect for each other. After going through that close, you're right. It's like a marriage. It's like you're in each other's pockets. You get in each other's nerves. You love each other. You have like disputes over nothing more but wanting to do the best for the project. And, at some point he had to do the same thing as me. Like we both needed a break.
And that's 2019.
This is actually earlier. This is probably 2017.
Right.
So 2017 or 2018, I went over to Europe with my mum and had this kind of time with her. Like we went and traveled together. And that was like, I cleaned up my act a lot. Like I think that throughout my whole life, and definitely throughout this like period of like just doing music, like I was very careless I think I was high functioning. Like I created and produced a lot of work and my output was good, but I was kind of like very careless, I would say is the only word, in terms of like maybe I didn't do amazingly by friends or other people in my life or people in my family that I was super close with, or like, I just feel like I was caught up in myself a lot. And I changed a lot around this time.
You had time to reflect, which you hadn't.
Well, I had a break, right?
Yeah.
And I think that when it's like, it is a very self-centered existence when all you're doing is playing shows and making albums, and you're kind of in a bubble, right? Like you don't have a regular job, you don't have a regular schedule. I'm putting a little bit of mayo on it right now because it wasn't all it's cracked up to be, but in a sense, you are a little bit removed from like
reality.
Right. So I kind of needed to get back to my roots a little bit, and having this trip with my mum, like, it was like a real cleanse for me. And we had such an amazing time. And she wasn't sick at that point. It was like she was, she had this trial drug that was like, oh, great. Like, there's literally no side effects, maybe super mild. So, like, we go out, have wines, go out for walks. Like, it was a beautiful time. So, like, it wasn't like the door is closing here. Like, let's just go and do something. It was like, no, we got back to where we needed to be. And for me, I never grew up with my dad there. It was just always me and mum. So it was this like really intimate relationship where that's all you know, Like my mum,
My dad's in my life now, but growing up, I never had. Yeah.
It's so it's super important. Like it was like a mum and a dad. My mum was like a mum and a dad. I know that sounds funny, but a mum and a dad and a brother and like a sister and like a friend, all in one. So like it was something that I was so indebted to her for how she put up with like all of this carelessness throughout my life. I'm not saying I was totally careless, but like you always focus on the negative stuff that you've done in your life. Mm-hmm. And I felt like when she was getting sick, what is the only thing that I could do to repay her or at least reciprocate some of that love, So I kind of like took charge of being her main carer and moved up there. She was living in Terrigal at the time, which is about an hour and a half north of Sydney. And I just did a year up there of like full-time care. Mm-hmm. So I stopped working. I
did everything for her that she did for you growing up.
Pretty much, but to a lesser extent because, she did it for however long, 20 years until I moved out. And, other people, I also got the sense that like other people would come in, whether it was community nurses or like people like from her friends or my auntie, her sister, and were like a great help and a great support system. But like, she wanted it to be me. I wanted it to be me too, because I was like very protective of her. I've always been protective of her. Even when she had boyfriends that came around, I would like, in my house, like even from a young age, I had that like dash in me, like, nah, you're in my mom's room. Like I was protective of her then. And like, I didn't know how to be protective, but it came out as like, my dad, my X, Y, and Z. Like I had always had that kind of dash and go in me when it came to that. So when it came to her being sick, I felt like I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to plan everything. I'm going to take the meetings with the doctors. I'm going to be a full-time carer. And my mom was a nurse. So like, she was always that for me tenfold. So it was a difficult period, but like one that I'm so glad I did. And, we got up until about 2019 when she got like significantly sicker. But we just lived together. We slept in the same room. Like her bed was there, my bed was here. I'd get up 3-4 times a night, like, and do whatever she needed done. Like it was a lot. But I could tell that like there was just that unspoken thing that like you're doing the right thing, and like this is the only bit that can kind of pay you back for like the stuff that I cause, And I feel like I was a good kid, but also now after having children, like I'll just imagine having a rebellious kid and it's just you.
Yep.
Like it's hard to get that perspective when you don't have your own kids, right?
Yeah, it is. It changes everything. I
yeah.
went through a very, very similar scenario. My dad wasn't there.
Yeah.
My mum passed away. I felt really guilty because I was a shit kid growing up. Now that I'm a dad, I get it way more. It changes.
Yep.
We all sort of get it, but that's part of maturity. And we were rebelling a lot of the time. I don't want to speak for you, but I speak for myself because our dads weren't there.
Yeah, I'd say that.
You know?
I'd say that. That's not even a cop-out. That is just the reality, you know? I found a lot of, like, solace in rap, to be honest with you. Like, I found a lot of solace in, like, no older brothers and just an only child. So, like, my mate's older brothers and, like, I soaked a lot of the game in from, like, listening to rap. Like, it kind of gave me this, like, external armor a bit, like, and my mum did everything she could and, like, put me in front of, like, you know, as I said, she, like, drove me to the workshops with the moat. Like, she'll buy me paint, like, she'll buy me X, Y, and Z that I need for recording. Like, always super supportive. She always said, like, she always gave me, like, options, like, all right, this is what you're doing now, but, like, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do as a thing? You should do teaching. You should do this. You should do X, Y, and Z. And then I remember later on, she's like, damn, I'm so glad you didn't listen to me. Like, you know, she will come to things and just be like, I'm so glad that your life is being based around things that you care about and not just, like, making someone else paper, you know? So, like, these are all going to be some things that, like, I have to grapple with myself now, you know, as a father.
Yeah.
And, like, what are going to be my kids' influences? What's going to be my kids' version of, like, that thing that the penny drops for them, and they're like, oh, this is the thing that, like, sparks my curiosity the most. I'm going to follow that. Like, what is that going to be for them? Yeah. And is that going to be constructive or destructive? You know, which one of the two is going to kind of lead them down whatever path they choose?
Can I ask you, do you have a relationship with your dad at all?
So my dad, short answer, no. Long answer, my dad was born in France, and they came over here when he was about 6. And they initially made a small life down here in Melbourne, and they moved up to Sydney. And he had a lot of abuse in the family from his stepfather. So his father was out of the picture, and then my grandma Yvonne, who just passed away recently, she brought in this man, I guess, for some help, you know, like some support, different time. He was from kind of the Spanish army, and he sexually abused them and physically abused my auntie and my dad. Sorry, I didn't. Yeah, no, it's cool. I'm totally sweet with talking about it. Okay. This I actually didn't know until I was like 25.
Okay.
I'll get to that. And then, so he's obviously, there's been a lot of, I don't actually think that my grandma was aware of it. I know that he was, like, physically like a big man and would, like, discipline them in that way. But I didn't know anything was sexual happening, and I definitely didn't know that when I was growing up. Throughout my life, about when my mum knew she was pregnant, my dad started to pull back. And this was a bit difficult because I even know when my grandma on my mum's side, she told me, when you were born, my dad was at home. My mum was in the hospital, and he was at home with, like, the doona up on his thing, like,
he didn't
biting
know how
it.
to deal because
He just couldn't handle it, right?
You can understand.
I can, but at the time, as a kid, I'm like, I don't understand. Now, as a grown-up, yes, I can totally understand. Like, he was scared shitless, right? Turns out, after that, he took, you know, he would take my mum's money, not return for 6 nights, gamble it all, drink it all, whatever it was. And then my mum left. I was 6 months old. My mum's like, it's better for me to take him out of the equation and just do it myself. Yeah. My grandma was in the mix. She was like, my whole life has been my auntie, my grandma, and my mum. It's this like powerhouse of women that kind of raised me. But from then, I didn't have any dad in my life. And there would be these like little dotted instances of like, I'd be 7 or I'd be 5. I remember I was 5 and it was my birthday, and he met me at Town Hall steps and bought me a boombox. And then no one hear from me in 5 years. Yeah. And then I get a call, somehow you get the number and it would be like 10 p.m. and I'd pick it up and I'd be like, hello? And he'd be like, I love you, and just slur. And then my mum would figure it out and he had to change the number, and then it'd be this kind of cat and mouse game of like random shit like that. But I never understood why like he would never try. Like my mum would take him to see people, or like offered him all these outs, and then, he obviously didn't. I actually don't know if my mum knew the extent. I turned 25 and I reach out to him, and I speak to my mum about it. I'm like, I want to reach out, and for no reason, like, just want to chat with him. And I feel like I'm, maturing as a man, and like I want to have a conversation. So I call him up after, 15 years. I mean, and I'm talking about my whole life. He hasn't been there, but like 15 years since like I might have got a phone call when he was drunk. And I say, it's me. I want to meet up with you, and, we can go for a drink or we can go for dinner. And I just want to chat with you. And, the first response, I'll never forget it, is like, I don't have any money. That's what he said. So I was like, it's not about the money. You understand what we're talking about here? We're not talking about money. I will pay for you. It's fine. I'm talking about connecting with you as a man now that I'm old. So that you could get a little sense of like, it's not quite grasping the how monumental this is for me to even connect with you. So I meet up with him, and we're at this bar in Sydney, and I write about it on a song actually called Same Story with Draft off that Sunday Gentleman album. But it's this instance where I'm at the bar, I'm looking around, I kind of don't know what he looks like. He doesn't really know what I look like. And then I see this person in front of me at the bar, and I just see him pick up this glass, and his hand and his wrist is like exactly mine. I was just always, and my mum used to always say he always fidgets, like does shit like this, and it used to piss my mum off. And I just see him doing that in the line, like I'm like, it was just surreal for me. And then I sat down with him, and it was difficult. It wasn't fulfilling. I was the parent. I was the parent in the
dynamic.
Yeah. And I actually got quite, I was pissed off because off the bat, it wasn't like I was pressing him, but like the accountability wasn't there at all. Like all it was he actually badmouthed my grandma and said she never wanted me around. And it was that kind of like...
Did you know at this point in time, though, about the abuse?
No.
What? So you didn't know. So there's...
No, but like, irrespective of that...
You still want him to
for you to not say anything, and like your go-to is, your grandma never liked me. That's cowardly for me. Mm-hmm. Only after that, when I pressed him, I was to the point where I was walking out. And then he kind of came forward with this information. I was at that point where I softened a little bit and was a bit shocked to what he said, and kind of, he opened up to me. But I think that's just his natural thing. He's been drowning in guilt for his whole life, and some shame, I'm sure, from this thing, that like anyone pressing him on something personal and deep, I'm going to deflect. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to not have to deal with it.
About their emotions.
Nah,
man.
exactly.
He grew up in a time where something bad was happening. You don't ever talk about it.
Exactly. So when he said that, I was like, that's the first moment where I was like, I see who you are. And it may not have even been fully him, but like I appreciated that he was telling me something honest. And to be honest, he said like, I was worried I was going to do it to you. So like hearing that as a 25-year-old, I'm like, it was conflicting because I was like, I understand now why you weren't there. Maybe it was out of love, right?
He thought it was the best to remove himself.
Maybe. I mean,
that's a lot to take on, man.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And like, I also think that like, you know, people have had X, Y, and Z happen to them and they've still made it out, you know, and made something of themselves and haven't just let that. I have never had that experience. I have never been treated in that way and had to deal with that. So I cannot I can't.
No, it's
I
hard.
can't empathize. But it was heavy for me to hear that.
For sure.
And that was a moment where I was like, I feel you. I've never had that moment with him. And I felt him in that moment and like hugged him and like, you know, that I guess helped both of us in that moment. And then I left. And then don't hear from him for 6 months. And then he hung himself.
Fuck,
and he didn't die. But that's the next time I had a contact with him is my half-brother's mum calls me and says he has tried to kill himself in your grandma's apartment. So I'm leaving where I was with a bunch of my crew and then I just go straight. They all came with me to the hospital and he's there like blue, you know, like, and just another thing, like, it was for me also deep because like, obviously it's a deep thing to happen when someone attempts that and doesn't see it through. But I was like, the timing of it, I just connected with you in this thing. I'm not making it about me, but like, I just connected with you on this thing.
Did you think that was the start of him being in your life? Or did you think that was just...
No, I didn't leave there being like, this is something that I can like tend to and we can get to. I actually thought that if there's anyone that can connect with him and make some sense of it with him, it's probably me. But I also didn't have the bandwidth to like baby someone back to a good spot. Yeah. Like, I'm being honest, like it was a task talking to him. Yeah. That was the only point where I found clarity was when he was like super ultra real with me. I was like, damn, this is what I wanted for this whole time. Just you to be a stand-up man about it and tell me what has gone on. Because how do I know? Yeah. So after that, you know, for that call, for me to get that call that had happened so close to this like kind of rekindling, that was heavy. For and sure, you know, he really after that kind of went off the rails even further, and I didn't speak to him for years after that. He was living on the street. Shit. He's doing all this other stuff and yeah, I mean, I would like walk past him in the street and he wouldn't know. Nah. This has happened like a bunch of times through my whole life. And one day I was on the train with him and I'm trying to go in another carriage because we're like not too far away from me and you or no, nothing. Yeah. There's a lot of crazy stuff happen with the instances with my dad. Like there's another time that I speak about it in this recent song I dropped called Cheshire Smile, and the third verse is like about a moment where I was driving. Two things. One time I was parked in a street in Chippendale and someone brushed past my car like on the hood, like, and just tapped it like that, and I stood up and I saw the same person doing that. And this is in a residential street. I'm like, why my car out of all of them? And then I get in my car and I'm still looking at this person and it's him. And I drive off and then maybe 2 weeks later, I happen to be in the same street. And I see him again. And I thought, I'm going to stop this time. And I went and had a conversation with him, and I was super nervous, like jittery nervous when I saw him. I'm not usually nervous when I meet people or speak to people, so I was like, and he was in a bad way.
Did he know it was you?
He knew it was me, but again, defensive, almost a bit like standoffish to the point where like I didn't know there was gonna be. Anyway, there's just visible friction there. And I saw him and he had no glasses, he smelt, he like was carrying around random shit in like a kid's backpack. Like it was bad. And that hit me again. And like this is me, like this, I'm still trying to look after him. I'm like, where's your phone? Like, what's your number? Like, I have no contact with him. And he's like, oh, I'm going to get a phone. It sounded like some junkie type shit. Like, oh, I'm going to get a phone today. I'm just going to get a phone. Yeah. Like, what's your number? I'm going to get a phone. Like, anyway, and I said, look, write my number down on this piece of paper. And on the weekend, I'll go. He didn't have glasses. I was like, I'll buy you some glasses. Like, I know he's blind as a bat. I was like, let me go get you a meal. Let me take you out and get you some glasses and put some money in your pocket or something.
Get you on the right track.
Something. I felt like that, even though I didn't have crazy amount of like love for him at this point. I felt like that was the right thing to do. And then he actually went and got a phone. So like he was actually doing that. So he texted me back in like an hour, and I was like, wow, maybe he was. Just sounded like something that you would say. And he goes, all right, well, I'll see you on the weekend. And then I get a call the day later that he has had a stroke and now he can't talk and he's in a home. So all these odd things happen to me when it comes to him. So just the timing of these things. So like, do you think it's a universe keeping you away from him? I don't know. I don't know what to put it down to, but like literally the moment that we were about to connect, something happens. And maybe it's me, like I don't know, but like just at that point, like the point that we were, I don't think it was ever going to be this thing where it's like, you're my dad, right? But like, it was just strange timing. Just like very, very strange timing of like, we will connect and then something stops it from connecting. So that's kind of where it's stayed for now. And
do you regret reaching out to him in the first place?
No.
You do, yeah.
No,
Because I've got a lot of friends that I know, not a lot, but a handful that have never met their dad. And I'm an advocate when I say to them, hey, because they're like, my mum's told me she's got his number, blah, blah, blah. And I always say to them, do it before it's too late. But now I hear that. Sometimes I think maybe it's better that they don't.
Maybe it's better that they don't because
I'll stop saying that now. Do you know what I mean?
No. But like, there's so many variables, right? And like that first instance, like I got a little bit of understanding from him. But what did I sacrifice for that little nugget? A lot. Like I carried a lot of weight around, and then the things that followed, like the hanging and like I know. I felt like that's on me, and now like this, like I'm trying to connect with him here. I'm like, well, I had a chance to, but then that couldn't happen because X, Y, and Z. So it's like, it's actually better that we don't talk. Yeah, it's better that like he's too far gone. Like there's other shit I will say that I'm not comfortable saying here, but like he's too far gone. Like that.
Yeah,
Maybe 20 years ago, if I was like to work with him on this shit, maybe.
That's it. And I think
But I don't have the time for that.
No, and I think what we now know in society is if anything traumatic happens, it's very important to talk to people so you don't carry that and it doesn't manifest into other things, you know? But they didn't know that back then.
Nah, and I'm actually so grateful that my mum was like, recognized that this could go left, because a lot of single mothers may potentially keep the toxic father around just for the optics of there being like a
parental unit.
Right. Or like, it's not great support, but it's support, right? Like if I want to go to the shops, there's someone to care for him, and like, you know, I've seen that happen a lot, like people with half brothers, half sisters, and it's like, you can tell this one went this way, this one went this way. And it turned out great, I think, comparatively, because my mum made that decision. And so like, I'm grateful for that as well. You know?
And for her, she had her sister and your grandmother as well, which a lot of other people don't have that support.
Exactly. You know? So like, there wasn't, you know, I say there was just me and mum, but like there was a unit there. And yeah, it's sad, bro. Like it's sad all around, you know, but like, as I say, like, I never grew up being like, oh, I wish I had a dad. Never. I don't think I ever did that. It was only when like I would go see really awesome dads that I was like, that would be sick. But that was a bit later. Like I'd be like, that's dope. Like your dad's taking you
to that
here and doing something. Like I was like, that's awesome. But like my mum always gave me so much that like I was never like, I wish you'd just be a bit more, you know, like I never really wanted for too much. Maybe some ill shoes, but she always gave me that too. So like,
man. Thanks for sharing that, dude, because I didn't know it was going to go that deep.
No.
It's deep.
I'm sorry if it got too deep, you know, but like this is,
as long as you're happy with sharing that
yeah,
stuff.
no, I'm always happy because like I put it in my music, you know, like it's in there. If you want to hear it, it's all in there. It actually comes out without me thinking to do it. Like this kind of where the pen kind of goes in that direction. But for me, it's actually sounds crazy to people that don't hear it. But like for me, it's just like, this is my family. Like this is like,
it's your reality.
This is my reality. It's not even something that's like deep for me to go into anymore. It's like just a part of the story, I guess.
Man, and it's a big part of the story.
Yeah.
So talking about your story, where do you go? So you've left the group. Your mum's unwell, but you're looking after her and you're attending to her.
Yep.
And then do you think about making solo musics? What?
Yeah, so this is probably around that time where like I've had 2 years off and don't really want to go back to music. I don't really like feel the need. I don't have the bandwidth to like think about doing something creative. I'm just like locked in on this. And then I'm doing these drives to Terrigal. So from Sydney to Terrigal, this is before I moved up there. And I was like, I'm newly married. I'm like, we're renovating a house in Sydney. So like things are going great for me in this other aspect. And then there's this sore and difficult and traumatic thing also happening concurrently. So before I made the decision to like totally move up there, I'm doing these trips like twice a week, right? And when I'm driving up there in this like hour and a half, I'm trying to get the voice note going because the rhymes are coming so quickly to me that I'm risking death at 110 Ks, like trying to fiddle with my phone and either write it or just record it. And I would just press record and I would drive. And I would have verses done by the time I would leave, like arrive.
Wow.
So at this point, I'm starting to, as my man Kai from Jackie Onassis said, he's like, you know when it's about to be that time because you start thinking in song. So like, when you're out of cycle or out of like inspiration cycle, you listen to songs like a spectator, right? Like you're just taking them in. But when you're thinking in song, you're listening to songs on the radio or other songs that people make, and you are dissecting them, and you're like thinking about the chords, and you're analytical. Whereas before, I wasn't really.
It's more passive.
Yeah, and like I wanted a break from the group shit. Like I wanted a break from music. So I think it was just an internal reaction of like my, my soul wanted me to go there again, you know? And so like it was coming very easily. So I say all that to say like I didn't intend to make an album, but while I was up there, I would need breaks from like being a carer, and I would take breaks and walk to the beach. My mom lived close to the beach.
Terrigal's a nice spot, man.
It is. I still got that house up there, which was hers. So like it's still like a holiday home for us now, which is beautiful because it's filled with memories. But in these times, like I would take these walks where I was like, I need to get out of here. Like I need to get out of this space for my sanity, and that's what I would do. And then so I'd hit up at it. I'll be like, you need to give me something. Like I need a pack. I need something. And he would start sending me things. And that's where I started to be like, initially it was like, I got these songs to sing to Nick. Like, I got these songs cooking. Like, maybe this can be some Spit Syndicate shit. Like, and I think we both realized when, after you saw the content, like, obviously, like, how much grief filtered down into it. And just the content and the tonality of it. He's like, this got to be you, bro.
Yeah.
Like, and I think I kind of knew that myself, but I think
it.
Yeah, because yes.
Yeah.
And it could have gone both ways, but like it was so heavily driven from me that it had to. That was kind of the catalyst for like, I'm gonna make some solo thing, and it was all about kind of this period, and it, you know. It came fairly easily at this point. As I said, it was like really, really quick. And I felt like, all right, if I'm going to do it, I got something to prove that I just had a lot to prove. After having a break, I had clarity. I had a lot going on in my life, and I felt like I wanted to prove my, flex my ability. And
as a solo artist as well. Because everyone's only really known you in that collective, which is a small one, but a collective.
And I felt like I wanted to do... It was like a really indie thing. It was like, I got to do everything. I got to do the artwork. I got to do the... I mean, I've always kind of been driving the creative, even when it was double S, to some extent. But like, it's really felt like this is going to be my... magnum opus. Like I really wanted this to be representative of like me and my mum as well, but like me telling my story that is like, this can't be split between two people. This has to be my own thing. So we did that, and then, you know, after my mum passed away in end of 2019, we would have you know, times where we had a 3-4 days blocked in the studio. And I'll be back down in Sydney, moved everything out of my mum's house, and really took what I wrote up there with my mum, and then was like, there's an album here. We need to make a few more songs, but like essentially the same crew that like I'm working with now came in and made this album without it. Adit was the one that EP'd it all and made all the beats in conjunction with these other players. And
did he know when he was making the beats, did he know how emotional it was to you?
Yeah.
He did. You had that conversation?
We all had parents, people in our family lost to cancer within 2-3 years. Adit had his brother pass away. And I say this very sensitively and with all respect. Nick, Joyride, there's all this going on at the same time. I remember going to what's it called? Lighthouse or something. It's escaping me now, but it's the cancer hub at Royal Prince Alfred Hospital. I went in there one day and I saw 3 of my mates.
Yeah, that's fucked.
3 of my mates all sitting there. Like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Like, so it was everywhere. Yeah. It was everywhere. So it was like, he knew because he had just had this tragedy happen within his family. So everyone was kind of like, yeah, it was around. And, you know, I was like reaching out to him for support around this time as well. You know, he's like, you should read this book. You should do this. You need to take, you know, you need help from this. Like, he's a big support for me. And we're all supporting each other through a bullshit time. Like, but yeah, he definitely knew that, like, and he recognized it in the music. Like, what was coming out was like the best shit I'd done at that time.
Were you apprehensive to put it out, or you just wanted to?
I needed to.
You needed to.
I needed to. I needed to. I needed that outlet after not doing it. And I knew that the writing was good. I knew that the music was good, and I actually didn't care who the fuck it reached.
It was for you.
Needed. It was for me. I just needed to do it. I paid for everything myself. I think I put $40,000 up. And just was like, whatever I need to do, I want to do it how I want to do it. And I want to just have it as something that is a pure expression of like where I'm at in my life now.
It was your therapy.
Yeah, it was. It was my therapy. That is a great way to put it. And I also knew that, like, fucking Lord willing, this is something that is going to happen now. Well, I don't have any other parents left, right? So it's like, this is something that's happening now, and I have this gift to channel it into something that will outlast me, and it's also, I have no say in the matter. It's coming out. I'm driving, and I'm like, it's coming to me without writing it down. That doesn't usually happen. I would usually have to write it all down. So there was more at play than just my desire to make an album, you know?
And as a first solo project, it's... Yeah.
So people love that album, and, you know, I love that album. And as I said, it was like, yeah, it could have done other things. It could always be bigger, and more people can know about it, and it can go X, Y, you know.
But it's not about that, especially with that project.
People are still now coming onto my new music and being like, wow, I didn't know you had this. And it's a very important album for a lot of people. A lot of people say, my mum died, my brother died, my sister died. I was playing this when we were going through this procedure, and, you know, I don't think I'm ever actually talking in there like directly, like, this is what's happening to me. It's all like this kind of grief woven patchwork of stuff that people obviously take, and they're like, shit, I know what you're saying there, like, and has obviously provided some kind of blanket for other people that are going through the same thing. And, you know, there's other music that I listen to that helped me throughout that period as well. Like, so it kind of, that's that passing of the baton, and, you know, that kind of
full circle that you can help someone else because someone else has helped you.
Yeah.
Passing it forward.
Exactly. And I'm not at that period in my life anymore. And, like, you know, so much has changed since that album. That album was 2020, and, like, now we're 2025, and I hadn't made any music since then. I was like, hang the boots up. Like, I've done something that is all me, and I'm super proud of it. But, like, I don't want to make music anymore. I had a kid. At that time, like, I had Bobby that came, my beautiful 3-year-old son, who came soon after that, 2021. And I was like, I just want to be the best dad. Like, that's all I want to do. I just want to be the best dad. I don't want to be fucking around, like, in the studio. I want to sit here with him. I want to sit in it. And
that's also because you didn't have that there as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's two different ways that guys who don't have a male figure in their lives is that you can push back, or you can go, I'm going to give him what I didn't have.
Yep.
And that's the healthy way to do it.
Exactly. And that time goes so quickly, as you would know, that like you can't split it. Like you can't split it with some selfish shit. And you become very selfless in that early phase because you know how much that they require of you. So like a lot of people don't though. A lot of people do fuck around and still keep doing everything for themselves, but
that shows the quality of someone's core, right, and it also, it shows who, like, everyone can party and whatever, but when the chips are down, you know, that's
for sure.
that shows who someone is
For sure. And then 2023, my daughter was born, so I've got a beautiful son and a beautiful daughter, and we were doing kind of very simple shit, like simple comparative to, you know, the decade previous. And then I think when my daughter was like maybe one, and it wasn't in that like newborn phase anymore, I was like, all right, what do I like to do again? Like I had that switch flick, like of.
Were you stay-at-home dad? Were you working as well?
I was working as well, but like only a couple of days a week. Only a couple of days a week. My wife and I owned a salon in near where we live. My wife's a hairdresser, and so like she was working a couple days. She obviously took time off, but like we were just managing this. Like I'll work a couple of days, you work a couple of days, we'll make it work. And the reality was, it started to just call me again. You know, like I had a bit too long a break maybe. And like, I think I didn't have the bandwidth to take anything else on in that first year of her life. And then when I started to say, oh, she's maybe taking steps. And we're like, all right, well. And I just had one day where I went and thought, I'm going to try and write something today. And then it just didn't look back from there. It just spiraled again in a great, beautiful way.
Did you think about reaching out to Nick?
No, because all of this time, once I had made that conscious decision to make that solo record, he was always super advanced in what he was in his planning and his vision. You know, he was always so good at management and music management and running the show for other people. You know, he did it for us. So while I was making these strides as an artist, he was making these other strides into artist management and you know, killing it in that sense, you know. Some of the biggest acts that you'll know in the scene, they're all handled by Nick and Adit. So Nick and Adit, you know, doing things with One Day Entertainment and One Day Recordings now as a subsidiary label from EMI and Universal, and like he's always making these big moves. So when this thing came around, there was the boots were hung up in terms of rapping. He's, you know, moving to a point of like, I'm trying to build careers for other people and utilize my experience.
Yeah.
And so this time around, like, we were always, the whole time, we were sending each other shit. You know, it's just not like we're not going to go in there and work on it as a project. But I just had this one day where I was like, I need to go now. Like, I need to, just that urgency. Like, I know something's happening. I'm thinking in song again. I know I need to hit this. Like, because you could wait too long and it could pass. But my antennas were up. And we just booked another 4 days. Same people, Glenn, Billy, Jono, and Adit. At this point, Adit is moving away from Horrorshow as well. And, you know, moving into this label space and this management space. So, like, he's pulling away. And I'm kind of trying to recreate Mad Idea and saying, like, but we're going to go again. Like, do you want to be a part of this? And he's like, you're gonna make better music with this other guy. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, you're gonna make better music with this other guy, this young actor they're managing. He's a producer and just a young prodigy. This guy called Ethan Parodi. And I was a bit like, yeah, but we had never not, since 2006, we had never not made projects together. Mm-hmm. So it was weird. Like,
another marriage breakup.
It was another breakup. A very amicable one. But like, I trusted him, you know, that, and this is like 2 days before we have this block of time for the sessions.
So at first you think maybe he's just...
I think it's going to be there the whole time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when we go into these sessions, like, it's pretty well thought out. It's not like we just go in there and throw shit at a wall. It's like there's playlists of reference tracks, there's tempos, there's parameters in which, like, we don't use these sounds. We need to be... So it's guided by me.
Because you've got the sounds in your head.
Yeah.
But you just can't...
Yeah, I don't know where it's going to end up, but, like, there are these kind of creative guardrails in place. So that you don't get in there and everyone's like, oh, we'll just make this random shit. Like, you know what I mean? So I hit up Ethan like the night before or 2 nights before, and I'm like, look, you know, we're going this direction with it sonically. And he's like, all right, cool, I got it. And when that first day, it was perfect. It was like, I trusted at it for a reason, you know? And he
came through, though.
He came through. He was there too. Like,
yeah.
He was just downstairs working.
Yeah.
We were upstairs in the stew. But it was this amazing, amazing synergy from the jump. He was always saying it. He's like, you and E, you got to, like, link up. And so E became my, like, engineer and executive producer of the album. He mixed, he mastered it, he made everything. And so this thing started to form of, you know, Billy Ward, who's an incredible saxophone player and, you know, just a wizard with the horns. And then Glenn Hopper, who's this incredible musician. He plays nearly everything, but like, just he was in the corner on this grand piano for like 3 days straight, just like, and a tower of synths, and he was just locked in. And John O'Graham, who I've spoken to you before, is like this guitar whiz and just has such an incredible, acute understanding of so many genres that he can, like, you can send him anything and he'll be like, I'll make something like that. And then Ethan, and then this became like something that was different. It wasn't like, oh, we're just going to get this pack from 7 different producers and whatever's a standout, we're going to bundle it all together at the end. No, this is like, we're going in here with nothing. Someone's playing one chord and it just goes woof, and it's just this living, breathing thing. I know other people make music like that, but for me, it felt like something new. And that kind of sparked the idea of like, let's rejig this. And, you know, it really felt like a clique, a collective and a band at that point. And within 3 days, we had pretty much 80% of the record. Yeah, so like that became the no, and kind of signaled to me that like, this is a new era. And it didn't sound like the last record. Like, even though a lot of the people were the same collaborators, it like, as I said, I was like in a great place.
Yeah.
It wasn't dark. It wasn't like, dripped in grief. It was hopeful. It was fun. It was confident. It was like, that's kind of where I'm at now. And the music reflected that. But it just felt like a new beginning.
And the time was right.
And the time was right. And I've been doing it long enough now that like, I know when I need to follow it. I know when I need to stay away from it as well, which is just as important, because a lot of artists don't know when to take a moment. You know, like, you need to take a breather and figure it out and then come back. And I think that there's a fear with creativity that it will always, it's like a tap that turns off and maybe too rusty to turn back on, but like, I think if you're receptive enough and open to there being ideas that can come all the time, they're all happening all the time. It's just like whether your antennas are up enough to like grab it out the sky.
And a lot of artists, they don't necessarily make their best work when they first they turn the tap.
Yeah.
Look at someone like Kendrick. He turned the tap off with K Dot, and he comes back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It does. You don't have to just keep the tap going.
And exactly. And this is just proof, like that. I still don't think that I've written my best song by any stretch. Like every song that we made here, I was like, this song today that we made is the best song I've ever made. That's how I was feeling every day. And I know sometimes you feel like that when it's the newest thing, but it's genuinely the best project that I've ever done by a country mile. I know we're out here in these green hills. I'm telling you, by a country mile.
And are your contemporaries telling you the same thing when you play it to
by
far,
by far, by a long shot.
Okay.
So I don't like. That's a bit of a shock to me that like I'm actually the most time poor I've ever been. I'm the most restricted. Not restricted emotionally, but like I can't go out and spend nights. You know, we used to rent a villa in Byron for a week and have a lot of fun. I can't do that. So it's like the only window of time that I have written every single song on here is at 5 a.m. to 6:30 in the morning.
Yep.
Everything came at that point because that's my time. I would get up and make a coffee, and then that would be my zone. I would at least even though I didn't get the whole thing at that window, I would have enough to carry me throughout the day. I might be driving around, I still get little bits, but it was that was my time.
Yeah.
And then I would, you know, obviously I got 2 kids, so it's like I'm not as free in terms of logistically. I'm not as wide open as I used to be. So I said, all right, every Friday it's gonna be me and Ethan, and we're gonna do something. We're just gonna work through that Friday, a year of Fridays, and we made the album.
A year of Fridays.
Yeah, a year of Fridays. It was actually less than that. I think we made the album in 10 months.
Yeah.
And you know, this became where Lupi and Addict came back into the fold because throughout the process they had a hand in it. You know, like they were always putting me in front of these people, like, you know, obviously the Ethan plug, and when it started to become a thing, came down here and met up with some people down here in Melbourne, and then they were like, we want to put this out. We want to put this out through One Day Recordings. And that kind of started this new working relationship, which was like, I can't fucking get away from Nick. I speak to him 7 times a day. I speak to him more than my wife. Yeah. So these were people who's hitting me up about Spit Syndicate. They're like, do you speak to Nick? Is everything all right with you and Nick? I'm like, I literally speak to him more than my child. That's actually what, you know, like, we're sweet. But this is just another like evolution of that partnership. Mm-hmm. And that's made me super proud that like we're working in this other kind of creative capacity now, where it's like strategizing on the campaigns, and he's my label, him and Ada, and, you know, obviously EMI, but like, you know, in terms of who's day-to-day running the show, it's us, it's Hilly, it's like, it's our team that we've got here. So it feels good. Mm-hmm. It feels better to do it that way than to have someone who is totally disconnected culturally and you know, personally, it feels good to have that kind of synergy in the working relationship and carry that lineage of One Day. Like, that's important to me also, to have this be like the first release on One Day Recordings, and it be, you know, something that we kind of brainstormed in the basement when we were kids, to have this be, you know, a real thing with a roster and a, you know, like backing, and that's a full circle moment too.
So what's next?
So next is to have this album that I'm currently in on cycle and piece by piece building this campaign is to put this album out, which will come out this spring, late spring. And
so what's that, like November?
It's around October. October it'll land. So it's quite a considerable lead in. Like I think we started dropping in like April. So from April to October and beyond. But it's been a pleasure, bro. It's like I actually think that this is like the part of the process where like I feel super comfortable is in like now that the
majority of the work's done.
The work is done, and now it's like, all right, creatively, how do I want to present?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I've been driving these kind of conversations and these brainstorm and whiteboard sessions where it's like, what do we want to achieve here? So to see it come to fruition, and for the people to respond. We had a few days out in Japan and shot a few videos over there, and that was a lovely experience of like just being over somewhere for the purpose of making art, and like it's awesome.
Yeah, man.
And it was a nice reprieve from the chaos at home, and like so my life is chaotic in a lot of ways, but like also super rewarding in a lot of ways. And somehow it's turned out that I've been more productive now. I think it's because I know I don't have any room to waste. Like there's no room for error.
You got to manage
you
every
understand.
minute.
You understand. Like even down to the day. Like I can't fuck around and watch a TV show. Like
no, I know.
I can't.
People that play video games. What are you doing? Yeah. Waste the time, man.
This is what gets me mad when people say, "Oh, I'm so busy." I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool." So what do you do? Like, what do you do all day with no fucking, no job or no kids or no whatever? Like, I'm flat out. Like, all right, but it's just turned out that way, and I think that like I appreciate the time that it's been given. Also, like a reaction to my mum passing is like,
don't waste time.
You don't waste time. You appreciate every day here, and you got to make it count. Like, I know that sounds cliche, but it's like you realize how quick it goes and how any day it can go. And I'm just like super, super psyched on the next chapter.
For sure.
Yeah.
Man, and I want you to come back in October if you can.
Let's do it.
So we can talk about it when the record actually is out.
Let's do it. I'll send you the record after this, and we'll pick back up.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
Is there anyone? Look, you've obviously touched on a lot of different people. Was there anyone you want to shout out or anything you want to say to the people listening as we get close to wrapping things up, man?
I mean, when I'm in Melbourne, I always feel like grateful to like the giants that walk before me. To be honest, like I mean, I've been coming down here for so long, and I want to just show respect and love to all of Melbourne because it has played such a pivotal role in our come up and so many other people's come ups, and like just early figures like the Trams and the Struts and just so many of them from that era. And I'm not gonna go sit and name all of them, but like just Melbourne as a mecca for me. And I don't want to talk about Melbourne as if like that's a bygone thing. Like this is like I know that Sydney get a lot of activity and focus because of how saturated it is. I also think that tide is turning, PS. But you know what I'm saying. I don't want to be like, oh, Melbourne was popping in 2000s, but like nothing now. No, there's a lot going on in Melbourne, and Melbourne will always hold that place in the culture. But I just want to show my respect to like everything that this city has like fabricated and orchestrated like unwillingly. Like it's just the streets and the people in it and the care that they have and the respect for the art. I think that it's present, and you can feel it when you come here. Sometimes it feels like other areas in Australia maybe a little bit more shallow with how thorough they are. I think that it never feels like that when you're in Melbourne. So love to Melbourne, and this always been like a second home to us. So yeah, I appreciate you having us, bro.
For sure, man. I think that's a great way to wrap it up, and look forward to hearing the album. I'm going to get a sneak peek.
You're going to get a sneak peek. As soon as we get out here and I do a wee, it's all yours, bro.
Jimmy, thanks for coming in, man, all the way from
Sydney.
Sydney, dude.
Yeah,
I
right.
appreciate it, man,
That's right.
and thanks for taking the time.
Appreciate it, bro.
Cheers.
3,000.